everyone, I'm Christy Dranak and welcome to the July edition of Watercolor Journal Club. So last month was the first month of Watercolor Journal Club and the theme was tiny watercolors. We created our own journal and all the prompts, we painted them tiny in our little journals. So you can check that out if you didn't get the chance to participate and have a lot of fun with that. I have a video on how to make the journals and everything. So have fun with that. This month for July's challenge, we are creating portraits and the prompt list is up for that now over on my Instagram. You can check that out. So for the first week, we are doing Kauai characters, so Kauai portraits. I did a couple of portraits yesterday live on Instagram, so you can catch that on my Instagram TV and over on my friend Flux Imagery. Her name is Erica. The first part of the video is on her feed, and the second part is over on my page. We had fun. She painted some mermaids, and I painted two girls. So today I thought it would be fun to take some characters that are maybe sort of well known. They're Disney Descendant characters. I know Maleficent is probably very well known, and this one that I'm painting drawing right now is Dizzy. So I had a lot of fun doing this. I've actually drawn up most of the Descendants characters as Kauai characters. So if you want to see those, let me know, and I'll do a little video demonstration of that as well, and flip through my sketchbook. So to make a character Kauai, you just want to make them cute and simplify them quite a bit. So what I do is I'll look up a picture, or if I'm going from my imagination, that'll be a whole different process. But I do recommend going from pictures when you're starting out. So pick a character that's easily identifiable, that have a lot of characteristics that people will spot and say, oh, I know who that is. So like the Little Mermaid, for instance, the red hair, and of course the little shells for her swimsuit and her tail. She's pretty obvious because of her colors and everything, so she'd be an easy one to do. Different characters like that. So this one, what I did is I looked up a picture, and then her hair is very red, and she has a cute outfit, and her glasses are very distinguishable, so you want to make sure to keep those things in there. When making the face simple and cute, you can make it very circular or more oval and stretched out. The key is for something to look cute, the closer together the features, as far as like you smash them up on the face, like so the eyes can be wide apart and then the nose is practically right in between the eyes and the mouth is up high. Everything is very close together. That makes them look younger and cuter. You look at a baby's face, that's how babies are. So that's the idea there. And simplifying, I mean, you could even do dots for the eyes. You could just do the slits. I do end up adding the pupils, but you could leave it like that with the slits. You could do more of like a smile and no lips. I took it just a little bit farther and I add the nose and the lips, but you can keep it even simpler. Look at a lot of Kauai illustrations, especially like when they Kauai food or other things like that are simple. It's just like two dots and like a little smile. So with characters though, you'll see with this one, she's real cute and happy. So you want to accentuate that. And then Maleficent, she's supposed to be very evil. So we accentuate that. And you can look up expressions, how to draw expressions. So like when you want somebody to look evil, or angry, the eyebrows are very expressive, and the eyes, the mouth a little bit, but especially the eyes. And same thing, happy, big smile, and then the squinted up, happy, smiley eyes. Very key. So with doing this, drawing them, just simplify all the shapes. And that's a great exercise in drawing anyway, is to grab the big shapes and simplify. So just look at the defining characteristics, especially like with outfits. If you're using famous characters and things like that, their outfits are usually very telling of who they are. And keep those elements in there and just simplify them. For the painting portion, if you're familiar with watercolor, you're all set. If you're not, to mix up a skin tone, I use mostly alizarin crimson and yellow ochre to make a Caucasian skin tone. So depending how pink you want it to be, you'd use more of the alizarin crimson. If you want it to be a little more peachy than pink, you'd use a little more of the yellow ochre, and I just mix those up and put that over the face. And then I drop in some cheek color, which is typically some alizarin crimson and still a little bit of the yellow ochre, so it's not like bright red or bright pink, and you can tone them down that way. You can also add a touch of ultramarine blue to that mixture to add some of the shadow areas. Then for darker skin tones, I will use burnt sienna in place of the yellow ochre. So I'll use burnt sienna and alizarin crimson, and I'll oftentimes also add some ultramarine to that as well. And you'll get some very nice skin tones using those combinations. Then when you're painting the clothes, just whatever color you want or whatever color you see for that character if it's very distinctive for the character. When you are painting the face, make sure to let it dry before you go up next to it, or any area in watercolor that is wet, the watercolor will run. So I'd be careful here, like at her forehead, make sure it's dry before I put her hair in so that it doesn't bleed down into her face. And I do recommend, and I didn't do this on Maleficent, but it's okay because it dried. You'll see that in a minute. But doing the face first, so all the light areas first, and then adding the darks when things are dried. It's helpful in watercolor to go from light to dark. So you can do that, and then letting everything dry, and you can go in and add all the details at the end. So that's how I've handled all these little Kauai portraits. Lots of fun to do. They take maybe, they can take like 20 minutes or so. And they're very, very fun. You're simplifying, and that's why I wanted to start with the Kauai style, so that we can do some simple portraits first, and then we can go into more realistic, or you can keep them very illustrated looking if you prefer to. It's just a fun challenge so that you're painting every day, and that's what Watercolor Journal Club is all about, is getting you painting at least once a week. Hopefully you get a chance to a little bit more just because it's so fun. We're building a nice fun community. On top of that, it is World Watercolor Month, which is awesome. So that's raising art awareness, and they donate supplies to communities in need, and just raising awareness to the benefits of art and keeping that in underprivileged areas and everything. So that's wonderful too. And it's based in watercolor. I think watercolor is, well, it's definitely my favorite medium. I just think it's a lot of fun. So, and it's easy, it's portable, and it's very, very easy to use. So as far as cleanup and things like that. So it's a lot of fun, and it's very versatile, I think. So, oh, and then the nose here. So what I'm doing here when I do these sorts of things, the shadow areas, I'm using that same mixture of skin tone, but I'm just doing a little darker, so less water mixed in. And that's how I create that nose. So it's very, very subtle, and just create a little shading because I want to keep this really cute and simple. And the lips, same thing. I just added a little more alizarin crimson there, and again, it's just a slightly darker version of the skin. So with watercolor, if you have less water in your paint mixture, you're going to get a darker value of the color. So you just have more pigment and less water. So that's what I'm doing when I'm layering like that. I do a lot of layering when I use watercolor. So I let the base layer dry, and then I come back in and I add my shadows later. Same thing I'm doing here on the skirt. Went in a little darker where it would be in shadow. You can keep building that up. You can keep going and get more and more detailed. I kept these pretty simple, but you could definitely keep going, and I could have added more. And then like where you're gonna shade anywhere on that skin, you just use a little bit less water. So that's how I do that. And the cheeks, I drop in at first. You notice when the skin tone was wet, drop in a little bit. And just keep in mind where you drop it in, it's going to spread if it's wet. So just drop in a little bit, not as big as you want it to be. So don't cover the whole cheek area when that area is wet, because it'll keep spreading farther. So you just drop in a little drop and it spreads out. And you can help it move by touching it with a damp brush. Then you can go back in later. See how I'm going in now? And then you go back. So when I dropped that in first, it was very dark. And then I went back and I dipped my brush in water and I dab it off on a towel. And I come back with the damp brush and I touch near where the paint was, and that helps it spread out a little more, and it fans out, and then it has a nice soft edge because you wouldn't want a harsh edge there. So now for Maleficent, she's different in that she has a lot of darker colors and she's angry. So here we go with that expression. So very angular will be angry, and very round things are cute or happy or approachable. You'll see this a lot with characters. If you haven't noticed, you'll start to notice that many times evil characters are very pointy. Their nose might be pointy, their chin might be pointy, things like that. They make them much more angular. You'll notice the actress that plays Maleficent, they really accentuated like her cheekbones and things to make her look very angular, and she has more of a square jaw. They probably accentuate that a lot with makeup. And cuter characters are very round-faced, so they play that up a lot in movies and in drawing. So something to keep in mind when you are drawing personalities. That way you can really capture that person's essence, I guess you would call it. And so here I putting in the purple, and this one I should have, as I was doing this, was kicking myself. I should have put in her skin tone first, but I get around that by letting this dry really well and then coming in and doing her face. The danger in that is that if you touch the purple even when it's dry, you may pick up a little bit of it, which wouldn't be the worst thing, but it would add some muddiness to your skin tone, maybe some shadow. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I don't know, I was just excited to paint her, I don't know what you would call that, her hat, I guess, yeah, I don't know, a cat, but I was excited to paint that, so I just totally, I don't know, I space out when I'm videoing. I think it's hard to video. That's why I always have to do a voiceover. I cannot barely talk and paint at the same time either. I try on my lives, but it can be a little challenging, and I tend to mess up. So eyes, I try to keep that symmetrical, and sometimes when I'm at the angle when you're painting with a camera, sometimes that gets a little bit skewed. I have to go back and fix it after the video is done, but it's not a big deal. It's just one of those things when you're trying to video something, because them painting flat instead of at an angle where I can see things better. So, but it's no big deal. And see, so it dried, and I was just real careful. You see how I'm leaving it almost a touch of white there, and then I go up and I carefully push it up. So that's why I did that. So you can get around it. It's not a big deal. And then see, I dropped in that little dot, and I came back with that damp brush, and it was a little too much, and I just kind of, so if you come back in with like a drier brush and just slightly damp it, will wick up some of the moisture or some of the paint, and that's what I'm doing there. I'll do it, I know I've said this before, I will put up a technique video that will we can practice some techniques too with watercolor. And here I'm trying to leave a little tiny bit so you can see the definition of each leg. Here we are using a little bit more of that, where I'm using more pigment and less water. So whenever you want something dark, that's a good thing to do with watercolor. And I'm going to do her face the same way. She had a lot of purple on her face. So if you haven't already, I'd love it if you subscribe and like this video. You can come on over to my Instagram and check it out. We've got Watercolor Journal Club going full force. I have a video on how to make the journals once again, so you can check that out. It's a real easy journal to make. It's awesome because then you have the paper you like. So I use Arches 140-pound paper. This is cold pressed. I use cold press or hot press for illustrations, and then the rough paper more for like florals and landscapes. Because it has a nice texture that does a lot of the work for you when you do those landscapes. And we'll just have fun with the challenge. It's free to join. It's a good community. Our hashtag is #Watercolor Journal Club. And then for this month's challenge, it is Watercolor Portraits in July. So you can check those out and see all the fun things everyone's creating. And this is our first week kicking it off with Kawaii style. So hope you join us, have lots of fun, and comment below if you plan on joining. I would love to follow you over on Instagram and see what you're posting. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll try to answer them best as I can, or I'll try to create a video that helps you in your watercolor journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again next week.